Hi everybody, welcome back. Today is hopefully going to be our last live for this week. I may try to fit one in this weekend, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit, but it's our last one for writing for this week. And we talked about earlier, we talked about the writing folder versus the writing notebook, and then we also talked about yesterday using Play-Doh to teach the writing process. So if you're interested in watching either of those videos and you missed them, you can click the video tab up above underneath the header on Facebook. It'll have a video tab, and you can look to see what other videos I've done. I've got them done by playlist by writing. So I just wanted to say hello. If you will let me know in the comments below, if you'll let me know your grade level and your location, that helps me out a lot when I'm seeing the comments, because I can make sure that when I'm talking about a specific grade level that it fits your grade level. And I have a couple housekeeping things to talk about before I move on. Number one, this is probably going to be a shorter video. I'm just going to share some professional reading about Writer's Workshop and what I like and things that I've learned from some of the books that I have. I'm also going to be hopefully doing a live Q&A session, and this makes my stomach hurt and makes me feel a little nauseous because it's like talking about like the hot spot, the hot seat. Yeah, I'm in it right now. That is if anybody even asks questions. So if no one asks questions, it won't be very hot. It'll be like lukewarm, so it's not too bad at all. But if you have a question about Writer's Workshop, I'm not going to claim to be an expert. I'm just a teacher who's been in the trenches just like you guys, and I've done it for a couple of years. So if you would like how I've done it in the past or how I've approached certain situations, I would certainly do my best to answer any questions that you have. I'd love to know your questions to see if I can help you in any way. And if I don't know the answer, I'll be honest with you, I'll tell you, and it would make for a great blog post. I can go back and I can research it and try to find more information to help you guys. So either way, even if I'm not able to answer your question right now, my goal is to find a way to get that information to you. So please, if you have a question about Writer's Workshop, feel free to leave it in the comments below. If you leave them while I am live, I'll address them during the video. And if you leave them after the video has ended and you're watching the replay, I'll do my best to answer them in the comment sections, or like I said, write a blog post about it. So that's number one. So I hope people have comments. I hope you have a question. I want to hear something from you. The other thing I want to make sure I mention is, and I think my camera is still backwards, it's that Facebook glitch, so I'm going to hold it up and I have a feeling you're going to see the mirror image. So if you see it the right way, let me know. If you see it mirror image, let me know, because it actually is going to affect what I talk about today. If you notice up in the comments, or at the top, like where it describes the video, it has one paragraph about the video, and the second paragraph is all about a freebie for you guys. I have finished and I have published my 10 no-fail lessons for implementing Writer's Workshop. You've seen one of the lessons before. Actually, you've seen a couple of the lessons that are included in here. The heart map is, oh, it's backwards, Aaron. I was afraid of that. It's interesting because it's backwards on my camera too. And used to be when it was backward for me, it was right for you guys. I don't know what Facebook's doing. Anyway. But, so I could put it down. It does no good. But let me back up. The Play-Doh writing lesson that I did yesterday, that is explicitly taught and has all the steps and materials and all those kind of things. It also has photographs of the anchor charts that I did, so you could see that. I did another lesson I did with you guys was the Ish writing, where you did the quick sketch, and I used the book Ish. That is also in those lessons, and I'm not even going to do it up close because it's backwards for you guys anyway. But this is the actual lessons themselves, so you can see that they're pretty in-depth. It's got the day, the title of the lesson, the materials, the common core, the essential question, introduction, teaching point summary, conferencing points, places to take notes, and it's got pretty much everything you need to teach the lesson. So that is 10 days to launch the writing workshop. The way that you get that is simple. You just have to sign up for my newsletter. How do you sign up for my newsletter? In the link above, you'll see a little weird couple letters. Click on that link and it will take you to my newsletter, where you can sign up for all my updates and newsletters, and a thank you email will come to your inbox, and you can click on it and it will have the link to this freebie right here. So I hope everybody enjoys it. If you are already a subscriber to my newsletter, then I emailed a newsletter out today, and it is in that newsletter, I guess, that the letter that came into your inbox today. So, you're welcome, Erin. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about resources for you guys. So let's just say you're starting a writing workshop and you're not really sure where to start. You see that I have my 10 days, but you need something else to hold your hands. I have this book, and it's backwards to you, so it does no good, but I'll read you the title. At the end of this video, I'll take photographs of every book that I mention, and I'll put it in the comments so that you, if there's a text that you like, you can simply look in the comments to see what it is. Thank you, Jessica. Jessica says, we'll still watch and love you. So thank you. This is called Launching the Writing Workshop. It's a Scholastic book. It's by Denise Leograndis. I'm not familiar with her name. It's a step-by-step guide and photographs. If you open it up, it has actual color photographs. That's one of the things that appealed to me, that it has color photographs. And it has 10-day launching unit. Her launching unit is slightly different than my launching unit. But she addresses conferences, she addresses editing and revising. She even gives several in-depth lessons for teaching sensory details, and she takes sight one day, hearing another day, and she does all 5 over the course of 5 days. And I liked that because it did give some explicit lesson plans, and she uses the Calkins where you do the connect, activate, I can't see if I can get it. Connect, explain, model. Well, I guess it's a little bit different. Connect, explain, model, practice, link, and excuse to write is how she organizes her mini lessons. So it's similar to Calkins, but not exactly. So she does have a lot. I liked it. I thought it was great for a real basic overview of writing workshop. But I had been teaching a writing workshop several years by that point, so I didn't get as much out of it. But the photographs of another person's classroom and anchor charts, because there's tons of photographs of anchor charts and actually the books that she uses, and that was useful. So, yet again, Launching the Writer's Workshop by Denise Leograndis. If you need a hand-holding guide, this is a good one. So, that's one. This is a book that I have not read in so many years. Like, I realized, I think I read it in like 2007 or 8. It was a long time ago. It was written in 2005. It is Writing Essentials by Reggie Routman. And I can't remember the details from this book. I don't remember exact things from the book, but I just remember loving it. I remember it having a huge influence on my beliefs in general as a writing teacher and how to approach writing and the value in shared writing and demonstrative, is that the right word to use? Writing and modeling for students and the power of that. So she did a lot of like easing my mind. I am a huge Routman fan. I think she's brilliant. And she also has a book called The Reading Essentials, which is another book that, honestly, they're probably in my top 10, probably even top 5 books of education all time that I've read. So this one I enjoyed just because I think it helped me with what I thought about the teaching of writing in general. She also has some other good things in it as far as how she defines writer's workshop. And she has kind of like a looser definition of it. She said it's sustained daily writing across the curriculum of mostly self-chosen topics. It's writing for purposes and audiences that the writer values and understands. It's playing around with language and learning how to craft writing. It's conferring with students to respond to their writing, celebrate what they've done well, and teach the next steps for moving the writing forward. Teaching students what they need to know to write fluently and accurately, doing what writers do to make a piece engaging for the reader, and publishing for real audiences. And one of the things she did stress is publishing for real audiences. It also, she has like a list, and you're not going to see it as well because it's going to be reversed, but this is a list of possible mini lesson ideas. The top part of the list is craft ideas, the bottom is mechanics, which I thought was useful. It's not necessarily the actual lessons themselves, it's just ideas for the lessons. And she also talked about a lot on conferencing. So if you're struggling with conferencing and what conferencing should look like, there's a whole chapter on conferences, and I thought that was powerful. She also, with this book, there is a DVD that is included, and there's 8 videos of her conferencing with kids. So if you need to watch and see what is said during a conference and how you use that time to move a writer forward, this is a great book because it actually has videos that you can watch that are examples. So that's a highly recommended one. This one, I have 2 more books that I actually have not read all the way through. I flipped through, which actually suits the book. This is called I Can Write Like That. It is by Susan Eman, I'm not sure. Susan Eman, we'll say, and Kelly Ann Gayer. And it is a guide to mentor text and craft studies for Writers Workshop grades K through 6. This book is not one I was quite impressed with as others. It is like a resource. If you're looking for, like, you want to teach a lesson on alliteration and you are having a hard time finding books, then this is the kind of text that you need. This is a book that you need. How it's organized is it has different craft elements like alliteration, onomatopoeia, personification, point of view, personal. Does it have personal? It doesn't have personal narratives. It has seesaw patterns, similes, text features, those kind of things. And you can go to a page and it will have like a definition of, like, for example, a flashback. What is a flashback? Well, it defines a flashback for you. It's an interruption in the continuity of the story to relate an earlier episode. And then it has like an idea of why we should teach it, and then it gives you text. So it's kind of more of a resource. It does have a handful of explicit lessons in the back, which I thought was okay. Not great, but okay. The part I did like is that it has, like, for example, let's see if I can find a book I'm familiar with. That's easy. It has several books in the back. Oh, that's a good one, but I don't want to do that one. I'm not loving any of these, actually. Let's do Dear Miss LaRue, Letters from Obedience School. It gives a summary of it, and then it gives you possible ideas for what you could teach using that book. For example, you could teach breaking the rules, hyperbole, interesting format, point of view, print features, punctuation, sequencing, text features, and voice, and it tells you how it's found in the book. So that's valuable. But honestly, finding mentor text was not something I ever struggled with. There's so many books out there that are so wonderful. It does have matrix. Actually has more than one in it, as far as mentor text by author, and it has like the craft and then the book right there. So if you just want to look at a glance and you want to find a book on how to teach, list writing, you can go straight to this part. It was good. I'm not sure it was worth the price. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think it was like probably $20. I don't know if I would have paid $20 for it. This book is one that I bought like the last year I taught, and I never got around to oh, Jessica Jivey. Ooh, love that for craft and mechanics. Could tie in the mentor sentences. Yes. And this is one that's similar to what Jivey's talking about with her mentor sentences, but not exactly. This is a book that I actually never finished reading. I got it the last year I taught, and I just ran out of time. It just didn't happen. But it is Explicit Lessons by one of my favorite author, who is Linda Hoyt. I adore her. I've already shared a book by her, which was Revisit, Reflect, and Retell, and how you can use those ideas from that book for the fluent and somewhat transitional reader when I did that series of Facebook Lives. And this is how she teaches grammar and context. And it talks about, she has a cycle of what she does day 1, day 2, and day 3. And a lot of it's modeling straight from student writing. And it has the exact lesson plans. So if you're looking to teach capitalization and headings and things like that from student writing, this is a resource that you could also use. Editing a checklist, how to use an editing checklist. She's got the lesson and how to apply it to their writing. So that's something of using mechanics in context. And it's got the lessons right there. And I liked it because it also had your year at a glance for 2nd and 3rd grade. So you could just look at how they teach it and what order. And like always, if you're looking to teach grammar using mentor text and doing like using authentic text with authors, always look at Jivey's, if you're not sure, it's Ideas by Jivey, and she does different grade levels for mentor sentences. So if you're looking to teach grammar in context of the mentor text that you're teaching within like whatever you're doing for your mini lesson, that's a great way to tie it in, and she has sets for everything. Now, my last two I saved for you. I love. These are my 2 favorite books. If you have to go buy a book for teaching writing, this is what I'm going to tell you to buy. And it's by my favorite main man for writing. It's by Ralph Fletcher. And this is called Craft Lessons. And this is like mini lessons for dummies. Mini lessons for dummies. When I first started teaching writing workshop and I didn't know what to do for the mini lessons and I was kind of at a loss, this is one of the first books that I bought, and it holds your hand. And the way that it's organized is it gives you actual lessons for writing, like the craft of writing, and it has it for different grade levels. And it has a huge alphabetical list, and that's generally what I did. So let's just say I really wanted to work on beginning, middle, and end, because my second graders really struggled with that because they would have a beginning, a middle, and then they would have no end. So you just would go to the table of contents. It tells you the appropriate grade levels for the lesson. There happens to be 2 lessons for this, and you can turn to the page. And it has all the materials needed. He lists your a couple choices for mentor text. He talks about like why you should do it, and he teaches you how to do it. I mean, so it's basically your mini lessons right there. And these mini lessons are for grades K to, I think, 8. Is it K8? Yeah, so you could, and even if like, I found like when I was in second grade that some of the lessons for K2 may have been too easy, but I was able to modify the lessons for 3rd and 4th grade and use that appropriately in my classroom very easily. So this is a fantastic resource. If you are looking for books about writing, this is the one to go to. So I will include a photograph and link to that on Amazon for you guys in the comments after the video. Next, this you can see another one. You can see how well I use these books because they're like dirty. This is also by Ralph Fletcher. This is basically fiction or literary writing. This is going to be craft lessons for nonfiction writing, which is so valuable because I think nonfiction writing can be really hard to teach because kids just, they don't have as much exposure to it, especially in like second grade. A lot of them aren't reading as many informational books. As they get older, they're going to be able to tackle more of that text with the text structures, but as they're babies, they may not be reading as much. I will say it's changing because they are putting out more and more nonfiction books for younger readers, but it's still a little bit of a struggle. So like, how do you teach that? Well, he's got all your lessons right there, and you can even see like you may not be able to read it because it's mirrored, but you can see that I wrote all over it and highlighted it because I would highlight my lessons that I liked or the ones that I taught. So he's got tons. And he's got exploratory lessons, lessons for describing, sharpening your lead, using a chart to summarize, using subheadings, writing a caption, writing through a mask, writing a topic sentence. And it's the same format where it will give you the anchor text and any resources, why you should teach it, and how to teach it. So that is, if I had to say go out and buy some books, this would be what I said personally. He also has like a writing kit that he put out some years ago that I saw. It was like it looked like a file folder, like a expandable file folder made out of clear plastic, and there were cards and I think it had the books, like the mentor text, and a lesson with a card on it. So if you needed like mini lessons for writing in a pinch, they were right there ready to go. I don't think I looked at it as much because I had those 2 books, so I didn't simply go through it as much. So those are my favorites and some of the books that have influenced me on teaching and writing. So let's see. I'm going to take a little, hopefully you'll get some more questions, and I'm going to show you just like a little awkward interlude. Ooh, this is what I worked on today because this is what I do for my job. I make paper crafts. But I wonder what story this goes to. This is something I'm working right now. So I'm going to ask if anybody can guess what this goes to. You could put it in the comments, and the first person to get it correct will get the pack free. Just put your guess and your email, and it is yours, first person. All right, now let's see some questions. Now before I scroll, I'm going to answer some of the questions that I received before the video, or try to answer. I think maybe that's the key verbiage. Let's see. Assigning a topic versus writing in freedom. One of the big things about Writer's Workshop is choice, and it's choice within writing. And you want kids to be able to develop topics that they're interested in, write about things that they're interested in. Unfortunately, in the school setting, we're also required to teach certain genres, and that will often steer your writing, if you are looking for a better word. So I kind of like to think about choice within constraint. is how I look at it. So, for example, when usually almost always I did narrative the first 9 weeks, and I did that 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, if I remember correctly. We always did narrative in the beginning, maybe personal narrative and then narrative. There was choice because they got to write about a story of their choice or an experience of their choice. I didn't give them a prompt like write about a time when you got hurt. I did not do that. It was just write about something about, it happened in your life. So there was choice within the constraint of the topic. So I did control the genre because I had to. I wasn't given really a choice of what I had to teach. You have to teach, you know, what you're being required of. I mean, we do have, you know, standards that we have to address. So I guess there was some choice, but it was also, it was some teacher control as well. I don't know if that answers it. The next question was, how do you get kids to add more details? And I meant to pull something and I forgot to do it. I guess it really doesn't matter because it's a chart and it'd be backwards for you anyway. So that's okay. One of the things that I like to do with your younger kids about adding more details is telling them to tell the story across their hand. And as they touch each finger, it's an event in the story, starting with beginning, event, 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 end. So right there, you already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 thoughts. And for an end first grader, beginning second grader, that's actually a pretty decent size bit of writing for them to attend to. Now, as you get older, and one of the things, and I'm wondering if I saved it or if I tossed it. Let me grab to see what I got. I think I saved it. I was showing you guys the writing folder right here. And one of the things I talked about was using books to write from. And the way that you can stretch that out, so this is like, what, 5 pages folded in half. You could actually have kids touch each page, so then they're moving from the tactile from their hand to touching the page and saying, on this page, I'm going to talk about how when I was riding my bike, I was going too fast down the hill. And on this page, I'm going to talk about, I tried to put on the brakes, but I couldn't stop. And on this page, I'm going to talk about, so as they touch each page, they can tell you something that's going to happen in their story. So they're basically stretching the story across the length of the book, which would be like 8 pages, which would be 8 sentences for your younger writers, which is, yet again, for your young writers, that's pretty good. For my older writers, when I taught 4th grade, then it became, by adding details, when I was teaching the revision process, because for almost every like genre that I taught, or every unit that I taught several, like 2 to 3 at least, revision lessons. And the revision lessons were usually almost always going to be, not always, but often, about adding details. And that could be sharpening your lead and adding a better lead. It could be stretching out an emotion and zooming in on a time like a camera. And you could talk about inner feelings for the character and how they would act outwardly. You be show, not tell. All of those mini lessons are going to be ways for when they apply them to their writing, which is the point. You're going to ask them after you teach it to try it in their writing. If you do that, then that will automatically add details to their writing. I hope that makes sense. So, when do you get kids, was the next question. When do you get kids to complete or start a new piece? Well, because they were doing it within choice, some of my kids would continue stories for days and days and days and days and days, and then some of them would start a new story every time. And that, I found that my more immature writers would start a new story every day, just because they wrote so fast and they didn't add the details, and that was okay too, because we were learning. And that was like when I would conference with them, I'd say, let's take one of your stories and let's look at it real closely. Pick out your favorite and let's talk about it. So that's a strategy too. So they had a lot of control if we're starting and stopping. However, at the end of every unit I taught, I did at least 1 prompt writing, and that is how I assessed them. Because kids have to know how to write to a prompt. It's a life skill, and unfortunately it's what they're going to be tested on. So I expected them to take that piece all the way through the writing process, and that's usually where I got some of their grades as well from that. So they were finishing pieces, but there were a ton of started pieces, and I felt like that was okay. I felt like it was okay for the kids to experiment and start stories. I didn't have a problem with that. And if you notice a kid is always starting and never finishing anything, that's a great thing to talk about in a conference. It's just like when you do a reading conference. You see kids are always starting books. Well, that's a problem. You need to talk about why are you always starting and abandoning it. And that's okay to talk about. Kids need to know that sometimes it's okay to leave it alone, but sometimes you really need to finish what you start. Reluctant writers. Oh, if I could have $1 million or a nickel for every time I've been asked about reluctant writers, I'd be a millionaire. How do you get reluctant writers to write? And I honestly, I wish I had the silver bullet, and I'm really not sure. I know that the years that I've had the lowest, most struggling writers that couldn't almost write at all. Even in second grade, they just simply could not write at all. They copied text. To get started, they would take their favorite book and they just rewrote it. And I let them do that for a short amount of time, maybe a week or so, just so they felt like they were keeping up with their peers and they were able to do something. And from there, we would sit in conference and be like, okay, now it's time for you to write your own story. So let's talk about something that happened to you. And those are the kids you're really going to want to target in conferences, that you really are going to need to hold their hands. And you may need to say, well, let's talk about, have you ever had a pet? And you should be doing, in the beginning of the year, you should be doing a lot of brainstorming activities. In the launching unit that is my newsletter freebie that you can sign up for above, I have at least 2 brainstorming activities. I used a heart map, and I had a running list of ideas you could write about. So if kids got stuck, I always directed them to their brainstorm list or to their heart maps. And you could also do, because those are best in the beginning of the year when you're doing like a narrative, because they best fit. And when you start doing informational writing, you'll have a whole new brainstorming list, because it just won't necessarily fit the genre of the writing. So I really redirect kids to that, those brainstorm lists we've done as a group or we've done as part of mini lessons. So now I'm going to scroll through and see what have I got so far. How long did you wait to start conferencing with students? It is actually an explicit mini lesson and I can't remember what day it is. I think it's like it's the second week I started doing conferences with kids. It is part of the explicit mini lessons, and we actually, as a whole class, we watched a video I found online. I think it's like, it's not YouTube, it may be YouTube. It's a YouTube clip of a teacher conferencing, and we talked about what it looked like, and what we noticed. So if you want to do it with your kids, you could do that pretty quick. So we talked about the procedures and what did the kids do when the teacher was conferencing and those kind of things. I did conferencing personally. I did where I had like a running list of names. I had cards, and I would post about 3 a day because I found that I can get to about 3 kids a day. I put 3 names up and I'd rotate them out. So after every 7 days, I had 21 kids. I'd get to most people. And in that opt-in freebie above, I have editable cards. So if you would like to do cards and make them magnetic or put them on a pocket chart or however you want to do it, I guess you could do a smart board nowadays to post to show who's next for conferences. That's something you can do as well. But I also tried to get 3 because I found that if I did 3 as I was moving from kid to kid to kid, I could douse fires that popped up and help that was needed real quick in between. All right, let's see. Let's see. I have seen the answer to what the fishy is. I find that when I teach the lowest readers, they are the most reluctant writers. It's like pulling teeth, which is because reading and writing is all combined, and it's so true. Judy said, I struggle with editing with kids. Oh, editing is so absolutely painful. I actually have a blog post all about taking the pain out of editing with kids, because it's a horribly painful, like, makes you want to drink process. At least it made me want to drink. I had Dr. Pepper to keep me occupied. But with editing, I found that, and I wish I wasn't reversed because I could show it. One of the things that you could do is I didn't edit every piece with children. I felt like that was too much. I always focused on, like when I did conferences, it was what can I teach the writer, not the writing. So what can I teach that kid right now to make him a better writer? If it was how to use periods and how to use capital letters, so be it. But it wasn't always going to be a convention, or it wasn't always going to be something with mechanics. But I did include that in some of my conferences. I did always do a writing conference with each child to edit with them when they took a piece all the way through the writing process at the very end of the unit. So that was part of one of the conferences they would have, and they would bring me their paper, and they would have edited and revising all themselves first, and I would also have them do it with a peer. And then they would come to me and we would conference. And one of the things that I like to do is, like, if they would write on a line, if they had an error within that line, I'd put a tally on each line. And the reason I put a tally was to show them that there was an error within that line, but they were responsible for going back and finding the error. And if they saw that there was a lot of tallies, well, that's a big sign that they're either not catching their errors or they're making the same mistake every time, and we need to talk about that. They need to learn from that error. So that was always very an easy, powerful way to edit with kids. And I will, I will link that post when I finish with this video down in the bottom. And Anne said, did I incorporate any goal setting with writing? I didn't. I actually wanted to. One year I saw something I really liked and it never got off the ground, but I would have liked, that's something I wish I had done. I think it would be very powerful, kids, but it was one of those things that just slipped through the cracks. I didn't get it done. So, all right, that is all the questions I have for now. So if you have any extra questions, maybe you are watching this on replay and you didn't catch it, if you want to add them to the bottom, I will try to either address them or write a blog post about it. I will go back and I will put the previous blog post about editing in the comments as well, and I will also put photographs and there'll be affiliate links to Amazon within the comments below, so if there's a book you would like to purchase, I will make sure that you can get it. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you hopefully this weekend.